Hello and welcome to your weekly 360 Global Security Intelligence. I am Dakara Ependu. This week, we will be checking out issues regarding migration and flooding in Nigeria on Africa security trends. Also, Dr. Joseph Ochukwu will walk us through medical psychopaths on the Global Affairs segment. The Girl Child comes up next on Public Intel Go There, and stories making headlines on Public Intel Inside Stories would be the last on the segment. Stay tuned. Welcome back. Somewhere in Africa, Nigeria to be precise, is currently facing one of the worst floods in recent history that has killed more than 600 people and destroyed more than 82,000 homes. Farmlands have also been submerged, adding to the concerns that food security is now a major concern in Nigeria. As Nigerians continue to lament the impact of floodings across the country, the federal government has stated that 5 states are still at risk of experiencing flooding up to November this year. Clearly, this is a case of climate change. Now, to discuss this with me, I am joined virtually with Olumide Idowu, a climate change expert. Welcome on board, Idowu. Everyone is screaming climate change, and you have been preaching climate change for the longest of time. And one may be wondering, what is the relationship between climate change and the flooding happening in some states in Nigeria?
Yeah, thank you very much. This conversation has been can you hear me clearly? Yes, this conversation has been a talk of the town, even not only in Nigeria, but across the world. And the linkage is very simple. How are we adapting also? What climate change is all about is just for us to understand that is a growing threat to actions that human impute to the nature. And when flooding comes, the impact on people is the climate action that we are talking about, the climate change we are talking about. Your drainage that is not well kept, that your flow of water need to go through. And secondly, your preparation for the raining days. So all these things are conversation that brings up climate-related issues. And flood is just a little component of that. So it's only the ignorance or people that don't really understand the impact of climate change that will say that it's not climate change that is affecting us. Because the word climate change, meaning the climate is changing. So when there is rainfall, when the weather change, then there's a change in the atmosphere. So what are we talking about? Talking about the threat this is posing into the human nature and how it's affecting the livelihood of the people. So it's very simple. Thank you.
Okay, I believe the impact of flooding has caused many people to migrate to nearby villages, communities, or even town. Now, migration in most cases causes increase in crimes. Now, what more impact will this have as a threat to national security?
Okay, let me say, as we know that the impact of climate change, or let me say climate change is an urgent and growing threat to national security. And the displacement of people now is one of the biggest issues because people have to move from the prone area to a better area. Secondly, livelihood. When I say livelihood, shelter, food, clothing, house has also been taken away. So those are the threats. Those are the action. Those are the things that people are affected about now, presently. Because the only thing we know now as a Nigerian, for people that are affected, is relief materials, humanitarian gesture, But the way we prepare is totally ugly. We are not preparing for the future, for the raining days. And that is why you see that when flooding comes, it's not only affecting the vulnerable people or the local people, it affects both the rich, the poor, the young, the old. So apart from security issue, because you are staying in a place that you've gotten your security to yourself, and somebody is asking you to move, what guarantee your security where you are moving to? When you now get there and there's a guarantee for your security, for instance, is there any way for you to adapt to what you eat, what to wear, where to walk? All those things are environmental problem itself. So I can say that not only a security issue, livelihood issue is also one of the very urgent humanitarian things that we need to talk about.
Okay, Olumide, talking about awareness, with your organization, what awareness are you creating, or what awareness has been put in place to talk more or to teach more about climate change? Also, what solution would you recommend to the government as an expert?
Well, International Climate Change Development Initiative is an organization that have been building a climate smart generation across Africa, and specifically from Nigeria. With the present flood, we've had a lot of dialogue, conversation with experts on why, what, and what are the things that we need to do, or the advice we need to give the government. And I can tell you categorically that this issue have turned to an issue that if all of us don't take urgent action, not only us, because a lot of people have done a lot of things from the beginning of the year, getting themselves ready for these raining days. But what happened to us is that we are not really tackling the issue from the grassroots. When I say from the grassroots, we are not tackling it from the source. And that is why my organization, through some of our intervention by talking about or engaging the government on what we need to do, has been one of the things that we have been doing. In a couple of days, we're going to be creating an awareness in providing relief material. We have an organization working in some prone areas now that we want to support them with items that can actually, help the people that they are displacing, they are taking from one place to another. I will not lie to you. The urgent thing that we need now first is what people need to eat into their mouths, clothes for people to wear, because everything have been taken away. And that's why I said the humanitarian support should not be something they need to announce online. So it's supposed to be urgent. Immediately a disaster happens, we have the humanitarian and ministry. These are the things they need to do. You don't need to come and tell us you are giving them 5,000 naira, giving them 10,000 naira. Go into action. When people see your action, then people will tell the story. So my organization is trying to make sure that we push for, and there is this a petition that my organization also signed 2 days ago that is on change.com presently. We are pushing the government to actually make, let people understand what they need to do. Let people understand how they can take position in this issue, because we cannot continue to talk about this while most of us are just sitting down back in our house and looking at what is happening, and we are not doing anything. As little as we can support, we will continue to do by talking, by creating dialogue, by creating spaces for people to understand that we need to save lives. And the federal government and the local government need to collaborate to urgently respond to this disaster, by supporting with relief materials, resettlement for flood victims, and even affected states. It's very, very important. We know more states have Anambra also, Adamawa also. I'll take Anambra. The same time it happens last year is the same time it's happening this year. So what is the ecological fund? What is it meant for? What is the National Flood Emergency Preparedness and Response Plan? What do we created it for? How do we follow up with the National Agency Management, NEMA? What is their responsibility? Are we continuing to blame Cameroon for the problem that is happening to Kogi State? No. Let the federal government commence a good plan, to build a dam or water collection mechanism that will help us or help the country, to curb this effect of water release from Cameroon. Because we continue to, the Cameroon have made their own dam and it's working for them. We need to put our own two in place. So those are the urgent things that we need to do. And let me end by saying, we are also trying to also make advocacy around the Ecological Fund Office. It is high time for us to start looking at the Ecological Fund disbursements. How do we effectively have a transparency in that ecological fund? It's very, very important because flood risks, is very, very hard, and we need to adopt a sustainable working action that we have the input of NIMET, NEMA, all the agencies that are responsible for disaster risk reduction. So that my organization is trying to also create that atmosphere to talk to people, let people understand the consequences, let people understand the why. And we are not only talking, we are trying to also support the victims by sending some, cash to them for them to. So we are doing this through an organization that is on ground, just to support from the little that we have. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Idowu. Many thanks for coming on board.
Thank you very much for having me.